All right, let's dive into one of the most unusual and, believe it or not, one of the most important periods in all of ancient Egyptian history. We're talking about the 28th Dynasty. It's the story of a really incredible, even if very brief, comeback. So, what makes this dynasty so strange? Well, for starters, get this. It had only one pharaoh. Yup, you heard that right. An entire dynasty with a single ruler. And if you think that's weird, it gets even weirder. That one pharaoh's reign, the whole dynasty, lasted for just 6 years. 6. In the grand 3,000-year story of ancient Egypt, that's not even a blip on the radar. It's practically nothing. So that's the big puzzle, right? A one-king dynasty that lasts a mere 6 years. How on earth could something so small, so fleeting, actually end up changing the course of history? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out. Okay, so to really get this comeback story, we've got to rewind a little bit and set the scene. Because right before this little flicker of freedom, Egypt, well, let's just say Egypt wasn't calling its own shots. To get the full picture, you have to look at what was happening right before our story starts. For nearly 100 years, from about 525 to 404 BCE, Egypt was actually under the control of the massive Persian Achaemenid Empire. This wasn't a short visit. For almost a century, Egypt was basically just another province, run by a foreign power. And that is what makes the 28th dynasty so important. After being just a piece of the Persian puzzle for so long, this was the moment a native Egyptian was back on the throne. We're not just talking about a political change here. This was a powerful symbolic act of national liberation. So how did they do it? How did they pull this off? Well, that brings us to the hero of our story. The man who decided he was going to take on an entire empire and start this one-king dynasty. And here he is, Amyrtaeus. This is our guy, the single ruler we've been talking about. He's the one who led a successful rebellion, managed to kick the Persian forces out, and declared himself the new pharaoh of a free Egypt. I mean, can you imagine the courage that must have taken? Around 404 BCE, Amyrtaeus rallies enough support to actually drive out the Persian forces. He ends the occupation and puts an Egyptian back on the throne for the first time in generations. But, winning a revolution is one thing. Actually running a country is a whole different challenge. So how did Amyrtaeus handle his newly independent Egypt? He set up his royal capital in the city of Sais, right there in the Nile Delta. This was his power base, the strategic spot from which he tried to stitch the country back together after decades of Persian administration. And this is where the cracks start to appear. See, his support was really strong in the north, around his capital. But his control over Upper Egypt, way down south, it was much, much weaker. And this lack of unity across the kingdom, that was about to become a huge problem. Which leads us right back to that big question. Why was this incredible victory so brief? If he managed to kick out an empire, how did his dynasty only last for 6 years? It turns out the freedom he won was immediately under threat, not from the outside, but from within. His reign was basically plagued by other powerful Egyptian families who also wanted the throne. They saw their chance to grab power for themselves and they went for it. So the whole kingdom was pretty fragile. Amyrtaeus was dealing with constant infighting. His authority wasn't strong across the whole country, and he didn't have a clear successor to take over. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. The same Egyptian ambition that helped him rise to power was now tearing his new kingdom apart. And then, just 6 years after his historic win, it was all over. In 399 BCE, Amyrtaeus was defeated in battle and executed by a rival, a guy named Nepheritis I. And Nepheritis immediately founded the 29th dynasty, bringing the shortest dynasty in Egyptian history to a very abrupt end. So, on the surface, it seems like a total failure, right? A tragic little story of a quick victory and an even quicker defeat. But that is not the whole story. Let's talk about the unseen victory here and why this tiny blip on the timeline actually matters a lot. Even though it didn't last, the 28th dynasty had a massive symbolic impact. It was a powerful signal that Egyptians were not going to just roll over and accept foreign domination. It proved to an entire generation that independence wasn't just some old story. It was a real, achievable thing. It reignited national pride and inspired future leaders to keep fighting for their freedom. And really, that's the bottom line. The victory itself was temporary, but what it stood for? That was permanent. It was a crack in the armor of foreign rule, a crack that would inspire others for years to come.
So let's just do a super quick summary. The 28th Dynasty, 404 to 399 BCE. It had just one king, Amyrtaeus. It started with a successful revolt against Persia, but ended when he was taken out by an internal rival. And its real importance? It was a short but incredibly powerful symbol of the revival of native Egyptian rule.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The story of the 28th dynasty shows us that a legacy isn't always measured in years or decades. Significance can come in small packages. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often are history's biggest turning points found in its shortest chapters?